Okay, where'd the chat window go? It's supposed to be here somewhere. Well, whoever chatted, I cannot see the chat window somehow.
That was just me asking if I was muted.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. My name is David McDaniel. I kind of go by Mac generally. I'm the Director of Cloud Professional Services for Quinix Technologies here in the Tech Center. You can reach me at Mac at Quinix.io or David at Mobile360. And there's my LinkedIn and my Twitters. We'll get going here. So for those who have been here a few times, we'll kind of go over traditional things, communication items, what's new with AWS, resources, and tonight's topic. Tonight, I am very pleased to be joined by Andre Zoot, who is from AWS, and he is a solution architect in the training and certification team. So he is going to talk to everybody about how to get trained and certified. And obviously, this is a very popular topic because we had 98 RSVPs. All right, so we do have a Slack channel that lots of people kind of monitor, and if anybody ever has a burning AWS question, you can usually get an answer or some pointers to help resolve the issue. I do have a Twitter handle, the Denver AWS User Group, UG, and I do post post-meeting recordings and the slides and things like that. And we are listed on the AWS User Group site under Americas. And if you do ever have any announcements you'd like to share with the group, I'm happy to do that. So just send them to me before the meetup, and I'll get them in here. So a number of interesting announcements from AWS in the last few weeks or months. CloudFormation Guard. There is a compliance checking CLI that will make sure that your CloudFormation is compliant with your rules before you run it, so you don't find out afterwards. So that's really nice. Centralized WAF and security group management. I actually had a chance to experience this from Control Tower, and this allows you to have a single point of management for security groups and WAF settings for many accounts in your landing zone. So you're not having to switch back and forth between accounts to set up similar or repeated security groups, which is really nice. It actually kind of uses a tagging scheme to do that, and a combination of lambdas and a few things like that. So it's a really nice management utility when you're doing stuff at scale. TimeStream database is now GA. That's their time series database for doing time series analytics, obviously. S3 is now supported on Outposts, so that's GA. So now you can have S3 buckets local on-prem or in your data center. So there's a new competency for certification, digital workplace. I actually don't know exactly what this is, but I thought it was kind of interesting given our situation these days. Maybe Andre can speak about that a little bit if he has time. And then Amazon Bracket is Amazon's quantum computing. So I actually wish I knew what quantum annealing is, but it's exciting that quantum computing is even coming to public light here. And then for Lightsail, they now have a specific Lightsail content delivery network. So you can use a CDN for your Lightsail web servers, for example, your WordPresses or Drupals. And then Aurora Postgres now supports the PG Logical extension for those of you that use that. AWS Glue now has a visual authoring, which is really nice. So you get more of an IDE, a visual IDE type construct when you're building your Glue replications. RDS Aurora max storage is now 128 terabytes. I know of very few people that have more than that in a single database. And then API Gateway, this was a very good one. now supports mutual TLS. So you can now actually have on the front side of API Gateway, you can have shared or certificates that each side will use to authenticate with each other. Just improves the security footprint of API Gateway overall. And then there's some really good blogs that everybody should be aware of. I am Policy Generator blog. This helps you properly create IAM policy for the permissions you really want to grant a role or a person. And these are all links. So in the PDF that I post in a day or two, all these things you can link out to the specific blogs and updates. There's also an IAM security assessment tool. So it will help you get a better understanding of where you are from a IAM security posture standpoint. And then there's an interesting blog on how to do private link to Lambda. So now you can actually use private link from another, like a vendor's or a partner's account directly to Lambda. So you don't have to have an API gateway if it's not really necessary. Like we use things like that at one of my clients because they have 250 accounts. So it's really not even, it's not even a partner, it's just other accounts of theirs. And then RDS on Graviton 2 processors. The Graviton 2 is Amazon's own custom silicon, and running RDS on Graviton 2 can save in the ballpark of 20-ish%. You'll get a better cost performance mix, or get a better cost performance ratio. So those are kind of the announcements for this month. And we will now hand it over to Andre Zoot, and he will talk about certifications, which one, when, why, and how.
Awesome. Thanks, Mac.
Stop sharing. You can take over. All right.
Let's see. Okay. Do you see a presentation?
I do. Looks good.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and Mac, thanks for that great introduction. For those of you who didn't hear initially, my name is Andre Zoot, and I'm a solution architect, but specifically I'm a solution architect for our certification program. That means that, part of what I do is try to ensure the fairness and technical accuracy of the questions on the exam, and then also work behind the scenes using some of our own Amazon services to help make the preparation of the exams even better. So today, I was going to talk a little bit about a couple different topics with the exams, and we'll keep this as interactive as you like. So if you have questions, feel free to interrupt. Otherwise, I will also have a time for them at the end of the session. There's a few areas I can't get into, but what I want to do is leave that open for group discussion. I'll touch on exactly why in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. And if you see me screw up here, that's just me trying to humanize the whole process. It's not that I don't understand this Zoom that well. So why would you want an Amazon certification? Or as an employer, why would you want your employees to have them? Well, for the employers, it's a good way to validate training and knowledge that they may have. So most employers are having to train their people. It's just part of an expected perk that comes with most jobs. So, they want to know how effective is my training? Is it showing results? And a good way to validate that is to ask that your employees take a certification test to kind of prove that they're learning what you think they're learning. And if not, then they can adjust their coursework or accordingly. Also, certifications are sometimes used in decisions for hiring and interviewing. We'll get into more about that later, but it certainly is a factor for some companies that they want to see certifications when they're hiring people. For employees, there are a lot of great reasons to have them. The best is to showcase your skills and dedication. You can show that you've done studying on this topic, you've passed an exam. It's meaningful to a lot of companies out there. the one thing I really like about the certifications, which I used in my career, was when you're working for a company, you often can't decide what projects you're going to work on. If there's an interesting new project that's coming up on machine learning, and I don't have demonstrated skills on machine learning, it might be difficult for me to convince my management to put me on that project. But you can choose your certification path. You can decide what certifications you want to study for and take. And that can be valuable. Going to your manager and saying, hey, I'm interested in this new machine learning project. And oh, by the way, on my own time, I've taken the AWS machine learning specialty exam. That's a powerful statement, and one that's much more likely to sway the person than just your interest. So I think that's useful. I said attainable and fun short-term goals. Maybe fun's not the right word for everyone, but I think satisfying is. I really have enjoyed, putting a line in the sand, saying I'm going to get this certification. I study for it. I take it. I complete it. A lot of the things we work on are a little more nebulous and long-term. And again, sometimes outside of your control, but the certifications are right in your control. When you pass, you get some cool things. You get digital badges, which is essentially a way for you to take, say, your LinkedIn profile and have it point to badging that can prove that you have a certain certification. You get a discount coupon on the next exam you take. You get a free practice exam. And there are some special events that are open to just people that have a valid certification. Last year at reInvent and years previous, there was something called the Certification Lounge, where to get in, you had to be able to show that you had a certification. Obviously, reInvent's going to be different this year, but there still will be special events that are accessible by that group of people. So here are all of the certifications that Amazon offers, and they're broken into levels. You'll see at the very bottom to the middle is the Cloud Practitioner Foundational Level Cert. That is, I wouldn't say easy, but that's our starting place for certifications for many people. One step up from that is the associate level certifications: Solution Architect Associate, SysOps Administrator, Developer. Those are more complicated, deeper learning than needed for the Cloud Practitioner. And a lot of people will start right there. Then above them is the professional level certifications. These are significantly more involved, more time to study for. We recommend you have more industry knowledge. But they're, again, all of these are passable. And then off to the side, you'll see the specialty certs. This dives deep into certain areas that might be interesting to you: networking, security, machine learning, like that. Now, a question that we get asked a lot is, well, which one should I start with, or which one should I end with? What should be my goal? And unfortunately, it's not a very satisfying answer, but it depends on what your goals are, and the amount of time and effort that you're willing to invest in it. For some people, the Cloud Practitioner is as far as you need to get. That's a certification that basically means you can talk about the Amazon services. You would probably not be able to stand up a auto-scaling group if you've just been studying for the level of Cloud Practitioner. But if you're a technical recruiter, that might be a great place for you to go. Then you can at least talk competently to other people and about Amazon products to help understand what their experience levels is. It could be useful. Now, other people can use that as a starting point if they want. It's not required. As I said, none of these, there's no path that is required to take these. I could dive straight into the advanced networking if I wanted to. We wouldn't advise it. We would advise you start with at least some of the associate level certs and then move up from there. But I mean, if you're just a master at networking on Amazon and you want to take a path going straight there, it's open to you if you like.
Hey, Andre.
Yes, please.
Sorry, there was a question that came in. The question was, when can you go to the specialty level? Do you need a pro level first?
You do not. You can go, and thank you for the questions. I can't really see them, so I would really appreciate if you could, first off, feel free to interrupt me, but thank you very much for doing that. So none of the exams currently have prerequisites. They just have recommendations. So you can go straight into a specialty, but as I said, for most people, that's not a really a great path. But if you happen to be an expert on that specialization, you can certainly do that. For most people, what we recommend is a more stair-step approach, where you start with the certs that are a little less detailed, and then you work up from there. So, a path that a lot of people take, if, for instance, they want to be a solution architect on Amazon, they might start with the cloud practitioner, they might skip it. They'll then probably take the solution architect associate, which is this exam in the middle left. And then from there, once they're ready, they might step up to the solution architect professional. Or they might decide they just want to round out the other associate level exams. Now, another question that gets asked a lot is there any common area between these exams? And there is some. If, for instance, security is job 0 at Amazon, we build it into everything we do. So if you're going to take and pass the solution architect associate exam, you're going to be learning some security. And the security specialty exam is going to dig much deeper, but some of the same things apply. So there is some crossover between the exams, more or less depending on the areas you're looking at. So each one is a unique exam, separate to itself, but sometimes there is similar knowledge between them. Okay, so that's the exams that we have, and I've talked a little bit about kind of paths that we would expect you to take. Any other questions along those lines?
None have come in yet.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So, how much do they cost? How long do you get to take them? Here are the details. Obviously, for the lower, the exams that are less complicated, they're a little less expensive, but a little less time is given you to take them. From my personal experience, if you've been doing this a fair amount, you'll probably have plenty of time for foundational. Even associate will probably be pretty good. You might be stretched on professional and specialty. I found myself using the whole clock on solution architect professional.
Andre.
Now, how do you sign up for tests? You use one of 2 testing vendors. You go to the Amazon website at aws.training/certification, and you can drill down to there, log in, and then there's 2 testing vendors we have. Now, why 2 testing vendors? Each testing vendor has their own test centers or locations. So to give you convenience, we have 2 of them so that hopefully you have a good chance of finding one near you. Now that we're in the whole, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, trying to find a good place to interject. Another question came in. The person was wondering what the main difference between solution architect and DevOps engineer is.
Sure. Let me see if I can go backwards on my deck. So solution architect has to know a great variety of Amazon services at a pretty 100 level to 200 level knowledge base. So you might have to know how to set up auto scaling groups. You might have to know something about some of the various databases, things with EC2 instances. You might also need to know some about SysOps and some about development. However, those other certs, the SysOps administrator and the developer, they're much more narrowly focused. For instance, developer is going to focus mostly on the development tools within Amazon. So, code commit, code deploy would be on there. Beanstalk might still be on there. There will be some stuff on, perhaps on Lambda. Those topics could still be hit on at the solution architect associate, but probably not as much. So it's just kind of a different focus. Again, there is some crossover between them, but the focus is different. The solution architect associate, I like to think of it as a mile wide and an inch deep. In fact, I think I might have heard that quote from Mac. That might have been from you. And the solution architect professional, following that same line, is a mile wide and a couple inches deep. And that doesn't mean you don't need to know a lot about the services. It just means that what's typically more important is knowing a little about most of the core services.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
I did have a question on this one actually too.
Oh, cool.
I'm curious about the online proctoring.
Yes.
So, private location with a remote proctoring over a camera. Okay, so I've got all those things. But when I've taken all my tests at PSI, for example, you know, they take my watch, they check my pockets. You know, there's no way to bring any kind of other material into the testing center. So, what's preventing me to have something off camera?
Sure, and
help me.
and that's perfect. That's a great thought, and on a lot of people's minds. So thanks for bringing it up. I do have a slide where I'll go straight into that. So if you don't mind holding on, I think the next slide will hit it. But in this slide, the thing I wanted to point out is some testing centers are open. In Denver, I believe I was able to find some that were open. I'm personally a big fan of the online proctoring. Maybe it's just coronavirus and I've become a stay-at-home introvert, but man, if I can do it from a spare bedroom, that just seems a lot easier than driving somewhere.
Hey, I just took the online exam recently and my experience was not as great. Like it was through Pearson VUE, but I don't know if PSI has the similar thing, but it was like, I was taking the exam in the late hour of the evening, and their support was really terrible. Like they wanted like me to send the pictures and download an app and all those things. And they didn't have enough people to support or let us in. And I have to wait 1 hour to just get into the exam, you know. So just wanted to share my experience that if you sign up for 7:30 in the morning, it wouldn't be like that you'll start at 7:30. It might be a lot longer time just to get into the exam. They have a lot of admin tasks.
Well, first off, I'm sorry that you had a negative experience with that. That's not good. I'm not going to justify it. I'll just say that, you know, I've taken 2 exams online, and for both of mine, I got in quickly, but I know it is somewhat dependent on how busy they are at the time, and they should limit that. But we have seen situations where that's happened. So again, I'm sorry for that experience, and it's good that you brought it up. We will work with our vendors to try to do better. So, and again, I still will get to the slides specifically on online exams. It looks like it's a little further in my deck, but I'll be there shortly. So preparing for exam is also something we're asked about a lot. And we've got to be a little careful here because, you know, we write the questions, so we don't want to prepare you too well for them, right? We want you to, ideally what we would like you to do is become a great Amazon solution architect, and then you just pass the solution architect associate based on the knowledge you already have. But not all people have a chance to be an Amazon architect without first getting a certification. So we certainly understand that people have to study for it, but we don't really like, our goal is not for people to study for the cert and pass it directly with that. It's to, you know, gain the knowledge again, and then you can pass it easily or more easily. So Julius Caesar said, experience is the teacher of all things. And I don't believe Julius Caesar used Amazon services. He would have had to be a very early adopter, but that wisdom is still the case. Most people learn better when they're doing things. So work experience, there's some labs that we can do, just home, trying things out on your own. That tends to be a great way. You know, there's plenty of tutorials and, you know, ways that you can find interesting things to just try out on the services. Now, if you are worried about incurring a bill while you're doing this, there's something that most of you are probably familiar with called the Amazon free tier account. What it is a way to use many Amazon services free for 1 year. Now, I said many, I didn't say all. There are still some things that they will charge you for. For instance, if you create a domain name, andrezoot.com, that's not part of the free tier service. Most of the free tier things will notify you if you're going away from the free tier, but most, you know, there's a lot you can do with it, so you can play with it for free of charge. As far as training, There's some great options there. AWS has digital training on our website. It's a Kiku website, and all of our digital training is no cost. We also have a number of webinars that are useful for learning our services. Some of the webinars are specifically devoted towards, kind of finishing up your study for an exam. They're not your one-stop shop for studying for it, but they'll spend an hour or two, for instance, going over all the material that you're probably going to need on Cloud Practitioner. The idea is if you are taking that webinar and you come across something that you really don't know very well, then you may have to study a little more on your own, but it's just to kind of see where your gaps are. I found that to be really useful. I also have classroom training. So this is all remote now for the time being, but again, the classroom training is designed to teach you skills, not necessarily to prep you just for the exam, but the two do go hand in hand. We also have training partners that do both instructor-led and e-learning. Now, this is a topic that I want to cover a little more later. There are quite a few third-party vendors that provide online training for Amazon. I can't really get into them myself because it wouldn't really be fair if I recommended one over another. However, I do want everyone to have a chance to discuss that. So at the end of this presentation, I'd like to just open this up for letting anyone who has experience with some of these vendors chime in and talk about what their experiences were, see if they liked it. And I'll just kind of sit in the background and listen in. But I do want to give you that opportunity. Okay, Amazon documentation and resources. So white papers, we've got quite a few of them, and they're all really useful, some more appropriate to certain exams than others. There's also frequently asked questions for each one of our services. That's a great way to kind of see little nuggets of information. So reading through the FAQs for some of the core Amazon services is terribly useful. But there's a lot of those too. So, which ones matter most to you? Well, the top link here on the certification prep materials takes you to a website where you can navigate to an exam guide. And it also shows you the FAQs that are most relevant for the exam you're looking at and the white papers that are most relevant for the exam you're looking at. In that same section, there's a link to get to practice exams. Now, a practice exam does cost a little bit of money. I think it's $20 for most of them, and I think it's $40 for professional and specialty. The purpose of the practice exam is to see questions similar to the ones that are going to appear on your exam in a timed and online environment. So it's a way for you to kind of see if you can respond in a timed environment, knowing that you only have, say, a couple minutes for this question, a couple minutes for this question. We also have sample questions that are available on that same website. The difference between sample questions and practice questions: sample questions are free. You download them, and they come with not only the questions, but the answer and an explanation for why the answer is correct. The practice exam does not do that. The practice exam does not tell you specifically which one you missed and which one you got right. It gives you a percentage, and it tells you within each domain, what your percentage is, but it doesn't let you can't really use it as a study guide. It's just a prep guide to make sure that you're ready for it. Reinvent videos, as Matt kind of mentioned earlier, I find those tremendously useful. In all honesty, I sometimes think going to YouTube and watching the reinvent videos is more convenient than going to it live. But you don't get the spectacle and you don't get to ask the questions for that. So they both have a tremendously useful place. However, they're a good place to look out. Yeah, please go ahead.
And you don't get the party, which is a lot of fun. I will tell you that.
You don't get the parties.
The party, the Thursday night, or maybe it's Wednesday night. That is a lot of fun. Giant soccer.
The spectacle. The spectacle of reInvent is amazing.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
There were a couple questions. Sorry, I wanted to pass on.
Thank you.
If you took two different practice exams for the same test, would there be different questions?
Thank you for asking that. No, there's currently just one practice exam for each test. for each AWS certification test.
So if you take it more than once, you'll see the same set of questions.
You'll see the same questions. Please don't do
Okay.
that.
And then, because you'll pay for it more than once.
Right.
And then, do we have a sense of certification vertical, of what certification vertical, architect, operations, or developer, is most marketable or in demand?
So if you are a developer on Amazon, there is a development tract. In one of my earlier slides, let me hop back there real quick. I'll show you. So kind of the center columns where you have the DevOps engineer at the top, DevOps professional, and below that you have SysOps administrator, associate, and developer associate. If you're a developer and you really have not a lot of interest in architecting on AWS, then my personal thought, and your mileage may vary, the foundational would be optional. You might take it, or you might go straight to the developer associate and then straight to the DevOps engineer professional. Now, how does this affect your career? When I'm hiring people, I look at a number of things. I look at their attitude, their personality, their work experience, but I also do look at their certifications. I don't think that a certification alone will get you a job, but it might get you an interview. It might get, if there's 10 people that they're interviewing for a position, and they can only bring in 5 of those, and a couple of them have enormously compelling work experience, a couple of them have desirable certifications, those are probably the people I want to make sure I see. So it's not a guarantee, but it does help. There is I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'll give you my personal opinion, being in
Thank you very much.
Consulting business for a number of years now. I think I went the solution architect route. That was valuable to have those for dealing with customers and in a like we were talking about, a wide swath of solutions. The developer, or actually DevOps engineer pro, would be very valuable, and in my opinion, either the machine learning or the data analytics specialties. But the caveat is, don't take them to get them. Take them because that's the career path you want, and the passion. I tell everybody, do something you have passion for, because it shows that that will help you get interviews, that will help you get jobs for sure. And having the certification will just be on the cherry on top there. But don't try to force yourself into one kind of track, when you don't have that skill set or that passion. So that's
it's very well said. Yeah. I mean, for instance, I have all the certifications except Alexa. And people ask me, well, why don't you just get Alexa and then you'll have them all? And there's a part of me that's tempted to do it, but another part is like, no, I just don't use Alexa. I mean, it's a great certification for people that need it. I don't need it. So to put it in your words, I'm not passionate about it. And so I don't want to take the certification just to take the certification.
Yeah, exactly.
So reInvent videos, I love them. And again, when you're at reInvent, I even see some people changing the way they're doing their reInvent. And again, this year is completely different, but last year I saw more people attending the sessions that were interactive and then watching YouTube for the ones that were less interactive. So, as you choose as you want, that's just what I noticed at the last reInvent. So when you're taking an exam, there is such a thing as an accommodation. If English is not your first language and you need a little extra time to read through these items, both of the testing vendors have a way you can request an accommodation, which gives you an extra 30 minutes on the clock to complete your exam. It's valuable, I believe. One other thing I've noticed when I was taking exams is I've studied, I've prepared, I think I'm ready, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's easy to kind of get stuck there and be afraid to take the exam. What I would recommend is If you're at a point where you think you know it pretty well, you're able to pass the practice exam, the sample questions look good to you, you've completed your coursework, you're probably ready. So, instead of getting stuck and waiting till you know everything, because here's the kicker, no one knows everything. What I would recommend is you sign up for it, maybe a week or two ahead of time, use that last time to kind of fill in any gaps you might have in your knowledge, and then take it. If you don't pass the exam, it's not the end of the world. Certainly it's not the outcome you want, but it's only a failure if you stop there. If you use that as a way to now know more about the items that are going to be on the exam, you study some of the areas that you maybe missed, and you go and take the exam again, that's success. That's just success slightly deferred. So I have gotten a failing score on 2 of the exams that I took. And on both of them, I did just what I said. I used it as an opportunity to go back and study some more, and then I took them again and passed.
Another comment came in. So talking about passion, my passion is to go through conversational AI. So Alexa and ML is a great path for me. Regarding my remark, cloud practitioner plus associate developer can be the right path before choosing a specialty. So another comment I'll make about cloud practitioner is it does give you that very introductory level. It assures you have that knowledge, but it also gives you as the test taker the experience of taking a test without it being, jumping to a pro level certification or a specialty. And that helped me a lot personally because I have nerves when I'm taking a test. So back when I took it, it was actually called something else. It was pre-practitioner, but it was the very the introductory certification from AWS at the time. And it really gave me a lot more comfort kind of knowing what the testing process was like, knowing how they're going to ask questions, how much question are they going to ask? Do they, try to throw you off on questions, or is it really much more, just straight, what is the right answer? And that helped me a lot. So regarding your question on conversational AI, I would say cloud practitioner is always a great place to start, especially if you're new to AWS. And then the developer would be good because you'll need those for both ML and the Alexa. So I think that would be a good path.
That sounds great. I mean, I almost would consider doing a professional as well, but I would say that's up to you and your direction. Okay, cool. So some mechanics of taking an online exam. I'll mention this briefly. Hydrate, but not too much. You can't take a break. At some of the testing centers, you're allowed to take a bathroom break, but not when you're doing online proctoring, because they don't know where the next room goes to. They don't know if someone's there giving you hints if you step away. So there's no breaks allowed. You sign up, you schedule a time, schedule a date, plan to be going about a half hour before that date to get things started. Find a private and enclosed room, ideally one with a lock, because if someone opens that door, if your spouse walks in or your children walk in needing math help and the proctor sees them, they've got to invalidate the exam. They can't have any other people there. So a lock is good. I also put a sign up on my door saying, Daddy's taking a test, don't come in. So yeah, if your test is at 6:30, I would recommend you kind of get going with it a little before that. You're going to have to navigate to the testing center website that you chose. Going to have to download their client software. Their client software runs on your laptop, and basically what it does is make sure that no other programs are running and that no other programs can be launched. They don't want you to run your emailer and take screenshots of the exam and send them away. So you'll have to stop all apps. I usually drop my VPN when I'm doing that as well. They will then, and this was a question that came up earlier, you have to give away all your stuff. When you go to the testing center, you have to show an ID. When you do an online exam, you'll also show an ID, and then you'll, again, download the client, turn everything off on your laptop, accept that. Then they will give you you'll start the exam and they'll give you an access code. So they'll send an access code to your phone, enter that access code. And at that point, you take your phone and most other devices and you put them away out of arm's length from you. There will then be a time where you take some pictures of your environment. It might be that you take the pictures with your smartphone before the exam. That's what one vendor does. It might be that you take your laptop and turn it around, which leads me to a funny story, an embarrassing story. So I was signed up to take an exam. I still have a little bit of nerves when I take them, even though I've done quite a few. But I was in a room I'm not normally in. It had a desk and a chair. The chair was pretty slick. So I'm sitting in the chair and the exam proctor tells me to turn my laptop around. So I turn 90 degrees, fine. Turn 180 degrees, fine. Keep turning. I slid off the chair. I slid off the chair, bounced against the floor a couple times, and came to a stop, still holding my laptop. So the proctor's not saying a thing. I figure they're on mute because they're laughing their socks off. And I'm thinking, well, are they going to validate the test? I mean, I didn't read anything about not falling off the chair, but it seems kind of weird. So I got back up on my chair, and about 5 seconds later, the proctor came on, didn't mention it all, just said, okay, we're ready to start. So I made someone's day.
Wow, that's good. I'm glad, though, they had the ability to let that go by and continue your test.
It might be on YouTube somewhere. I don't know.
Another question. Is the client software multi-platform when Mac OS and the all-important Linux?
The Linux I can't answer. You could probably go to their website and find that, but Mac and Windows, definitely.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, strategy. Now, I've got to be a little circumspect on this. So again, this is the topic that you guys are more than welcome to bring up when I'm kind of sitting in the background, but I'll tell you what our group advises for taking the test as far as strategy. Most of this is not rocket science. Normally this makes sense. I mean, the first one is answer every question. You're graded on the number of questions you get right, not the number of questions you answer. So there's no benefit of not answering a question. So if you're running low on time, what I typically do is make sure that I've got an answer for each one of those questions. And then as I'm answering them, if there's a one you're not sure about, there's an option on the exam to mark it for review. So what I'd recommend if you're running out of time is mark any you're not sure of, but make sure you got every question answered. When you have to guess, the best solution or the best strategy is to eliminate whatever responses you're sure you can eliminate, and just guess between the ones that are left. Now, if you're uncertain about this and you want to leave a note for yourself when you come back to review, there's kind of a hack you can do to do that. There's a comments section for each question. Not many people use this. Some do, but not a high percentage. The comment section is where you can write things that will go to people like me that will often be able to read your comments. Like if you see an item, a question that you don't think is fair, or you think is, has two answers it should only have one, you can leave me a note, and I will, unless the exam is being retired, I will probably see that note and I will look at it and act upon it if I agree with your statement. But you can also use that comment section to leave notes for yourself. So if you come across a question and you're sure it's not A and B, you can write down in the comments, not A and B, flag the item for future review, and go on. Answer to one of to C or D, and then go on. And then when you come back after you've completed all the questions and you want to look at the ones you're uncertain about, you've got that comment to yourself that you can look at. I think that's useful. New services and features. So we don't put anything on the exam unless it's been out at least 6 months, usually more than that before it factors into the exam. We are constantly trying to look through the exams and find obsolete items or things that have been changed. So, kind of something about my job is when I see this new feature that comes out of Amazon, I'm like, oh, right, that's awesome. Now you can use EFS file systems for Lambda. And then I think, oh man, there's a lot of questions that's going to break. We're going to have to fix all of those. So it's a good and bad for me.
Do you want to hear my strategy now?
Sure, I'd
or
love
do
to
you want me
hear.
to wait?
No,
Okay.
let's hear it while we're here.
So my strategy is generally to go through all the questions fairly quickly, go front to back, answer. So basically identify the ones you can answer right away. So yes, I know this one's A, next, boom. Read it. If you don't know the answer after first or second reading, move on. So I get through all the questions. I've answered every one that to me was an easy answer. Then you go back and start at the beginning basically and do the elimination. Take out 2 if you can, and then like you said, always have an answer for every question. That's just my personal strategy. And
I think that sounds great. I mean, if you're doing a lot of them, you could try a couple different strategies, see what works for you. But that sounds like it's got a lot of good things about it. One other thing to mention about,
sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say one other thing to mention about the questions. Some of them are multiple choice. That means there'll be 4 answers and you check the one that's correct. Some of them will be multiple response, which means there are more than 4 responses and you have to pick the either 2 or 3 that are correct. But the question will always tell you. It won't trick you, and it won't let you move on until you selected the right number of answers for a multiple response.
Right, and especially with the pro level certs, I think you'll find a lot of the questions may not be right and wrong. It may be, what's the best answer for this? So the question may be calling for one answer, and there may be 2 or even 3 of them that technically are correct, but you have to choose the best answer. So that's a little more challenging because you really have to pay attention to every word, because there will be a word in there or a couple words that makes one answer a better answer than the others.
Right. And look at that last line and see what it's telling you. Sometimes it might say cost effective. Sometimes it might say, best performance or least expensive, or least costly. Make sure that you know what you're looking for before you click the answer. So best is sometimes the case, but it's most of the questions will give you a hint on what specifically they're looking for. You may still have to make a comparison. You might have to make a comparison between the cost of storing something in S3 versus the cost of storing something in Dynamo, but most of the questions should tell you that it's a cost issue that you're looking for.
Right, very good point. Read the question. The question tells you what they want you to answer, so you really have to understand what they're asking.
Right.
There is a not dumb question. This sounds like a multiple choice question format. So the answer to that part is basically yes, there is no essay section. There either will be one or more than one multiple correct answers, and the question will let you know that, as Andre said. Are there any where you are dropped to an AWS GUI and told something like build a VM with X and Y and Z? And in my testing experience, I have not seen that. It is purely textual questions, and you choose the right answer. Andre, do you want to answer that one too?
That is correct. There are none that do that. But wouldn't that be cool?
It would be interesting. There's one more part to this question. And am I graded on how close to the ideal I came?
The questions, if you get a correct response, that gives you one point on your raw score. There's not partial credit if you choose a pretty good answer versus one that's not correct. All of the questions are designed to have ideally one correct answer. So no, there's no partial credit.
On the ones where there are, 4 or 5 choices and you have to choose 2, if you chose one correct, and 1 incorrect, would that basically be a 0 for that question?
That would be a 0 for that question, yes.
But if you were required to, if 3 were correct and you answered 2 of them, you would essentially get a 1?
If there are 3 answers required and you only answer 2 of them correctly, you will get a 0 for that question.
Okay, got it.
Now, some people find the multiple response more difficult. Honestly, I do when I'm taking it. But there's another way to look at it. There are always 3 incorrect answers, regardless of how many there are in the multiple choice. Focus on the incorrect. Focus on the ones that you know are wrong. And then you have a much smaller subset to pick for the ones that are right.
Excellent strategy there.
Okay. Scoring. There's a lot of confusion about scoring on the exams. There used to be that you got a raw score. You know, it said, okay, there's 65 questions. You got 40 correct. That's, 60% or whatever. And that's a pass or fail. But we're not presenting the raw scoring anymore. There's still one specialty exam that still has the raw scoring. All the rest are moving to have moved to a scaled score. So a scaled score is like what you might get on an SAT. If you get a 700 and a foundational level exam, that's a passing score. That doesn't mean you've got 70% of the answers correct. It doesn't mean that 70% of the people got that. It's simply a standardized score. So hopefully that helps a little bit. The reason for this is there are more than one. If I take this exam, I might get different questions than if Kevin or Mac or someone else takes it. Now, all questions are not going to be identically hard. Some questions are going to be more difficult than others. And so if I happen to take an exam that has more difficult questions, the score I need is slightly less. But we still standardize that. So if I got a passing score of 750 on my associate exam, I might not have had to get as many raw questions correct as someone that took an easier form of that exam. I hope that makes sense. I know that's a lot of weird concepts.
On that, does this mean that some questions are weighted more than others?
They're not. The questions themselves are not weighted. The exam is weighted. How many raw questions you have to get right in order to pass the exam can differ between one exam and another.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so you immediately will know if you pass or fail. It'll tell you. However, the details on how you did in each domain or category of the exam, that comes later. I think they say 5 days. Typically, I find it, by the time I get home or log in later if I did it from home, I usually see it. It can take a couple days to come. Okay, discounts, research, beta, badging. I think actually I took beta off of this slide, but anyway. So the cert lasts for 3 years. We used to say that it lasts for 2 years with a 1-year grace period, but essentially that was 3 years. So we just tried to remove a little confusion and just said the certs are good for 3 years. There's not a recertification. To recertify for an expired cert, you have to retake the entire test. I mean, we work in an industry that moves very fast. I think you can expect that someone who is out of that industry for 3 years is going to be at a significant disadvantage. So to recertify them on the entire exam, from that perspective makes sense. If you work at a company and you don't want to process, all of your employees taking exams, submitting expenses, putting on a corporate credit card, whatever, the company can buy what's called X vouchers that allow you to take a certain number of exams and prepay for them. So you can then just give the exam code to individual employees and they can use that to take their exam. If you buy more than 250, I believe X voucher will give you a small discount on that, but that's X voucher's policy, not Amazon's. So, if they were to change that, don't tell me that I did it wrong. It's it's their policy. Languages you can take the exam in. So English is by far the most popular, but you can also take our exams in simplified Mandarin Chinese, in Korean, in Japanese. For the cloud practitioner, you can also take it in, Indonesian. You can take it in Indonesian as well. Now, if you take an exam in a language other than English, it makes available to you both the English and the translated version. So, if you're in simplified Chinese, you've got your Chinese exam up, you can press a button and it'll flip over to English. So if you speak some English and you're just not quite sure if the translation is correct, you can swap back between the two. Again, we want the exams to be fair. We want them to be fair for someone in any region to take them. As far as proctoring goes, proctoring is, when you're talking to the person proctoring you on a remote or on an at-home test, that person will speak English. One of the vendors also has people that speak Japanese, but there's no expectation to support the other languages from the proctor. If you wanted to take a test in simplified Chinese and you didn't speak any English, you would need to take it at an exam center. Okay, the digital badges I talked about earlier, they're basically ways you can prove to people that you have this exam. I link mine in for my profiles. Some people put them on their email signatures. It's your way of telling the world that you've made this great accomplishment. So there's something called the subject matter expert program within our certification team. Basically, we're always updating our exams. We're occasionally creating new ones, and we need experts to help us write these questions. So if you have an interest, you can join the SME, or you can apply for the SME program. Not everyone is accepted, but there's a chance you could come in and help us actually write an exam. We do require that you already have that exam passed in order to do that, but it's a pretty cool thing to do. If you are a collector and you collected all the icons for the certifications, there's a special icon for subject matter experts, and to some people that's enough. That'll get them there. To others, there's a little swag involved, and also the ability to contribute to something that's pretty cool. So again, if you're interested, if you have a lot of experience, consider the SME program. We'd love to have you. Okay, well, that's what I had to present. Any questions on things that I've gone over?
There is one more that came in. What would be the average amount of time to dedicate to training to be ready for fundamental on a weekly basis? On a weekly basis based on your experience.
Okay, so fundamental, the foundational, the cloud practitioner foundational, it's probably the one that requires the least hands-on. Honestly, you don't have to really be able to build stuff for the foundational. You have to know what the services do. Now, with that said, I still think it's valuable to get on the console and look around, because when I visually go to RDS and I see the database engines that it lists there as my options, that sticks in my head better than if I'm just reading some training or watching a video. So even for the foundational, I would recommend you go to hands-on, but it's probably going to be very simple things. Maybe uploading the file to S3, maybe just poking around and seeing what you can do. As far as time to devote, I mean, it's a hard one to answer because everyone's different. But I believe that if you spend 20 hours studying for the foundational, you should be able to pass it. If you're someone that works in the field and has experience with AWS, you probably don't need nearly that much time. You probably still need some time to kind of fill in the gaps that you might not necessarily work with. There might be some questions about the support levels, and that might be something that you've never touched. So I would still study for it regardless of what your level is. But if you already have extensive experience, you won't have to study a ton for it. Any other comments from you?
No, this is, I'll just say this was tremendously helpful, I think, for anybody looking to get into the certifications. I wish I had a lot of this information when I was starting my certifications.
I do have a question, actually like two questions. Answer.
Love to hear him.
Thanks actually for the presentation today. It was very helpful. Um, I do hold 3 certification. I started with the practitioner, I got the solution architect, and then I got the sysops. So this is
Awesome.
3 I got so far. It's really, really difficult at this time, like to find a job and then how to actually like getting on start to the cloud, like and what kind of jobs that you actually holding this certification with no technical background. Like I know a little bit of programming, I know a little bit of Linux, like you know what I mean, like but not actually professional doing this. So what kind of jobs at AWS actually to look for? Because like when you go to the website and you look for jobs there, and then there is some entry, there's not that many entry level jobs, and they actually require like maybe like you, I don't know, like you have some experience, some like no job posted there, like with no experience. You know what I mean? Like, but you take this certification to actually get an interview and then try to like present yourself and then go from there. But I don't see this.
So specifically at Amazon, you know, there are limitations to not having experience that would be barriers, you know, to get in. But there are avenues where you can do it. We do have some programs that are designed to bring in new college grads and people that don't have a ton of experience and kind of walk them through months of training.
Do you mind listing those programs?
Let's see. So there's they hire out of the colleges. They're part of AWS Educate. AWS Educate is a program that basically takes Amazon training out to college classes, so that you can take it as part of your college curriculum. So Educate would be one. Restart is another program that's designed to take people that maybe don't have technology jobs or people just coming out of the military.
No, I got that Restart. I mean, I know about it, but actually the Restart is actually like at the end of the day, you get you to the practitioner. But if you actually in the associate level, they won't actually accept you. Because I asked them, like I went actually through this process.
Gotcha. And there's training that they do besides the certification, but that's interesting to hear that they won't accept you if you already have the associate.
They're not saying they're not accepting, but they actually like recommend you, like you go for a different program, like higher level program, because you already hold more than one certification.
So are you familiar with the Credly Acclaim website, the place where you go with your digital badges?
No.
Okay. If you go to your certification page and go to the badges section, you can get to this website called Credly. That's where you put in, that's where you get the URLs that you use to link your badges to your like LinkedIn account.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I got you. Yeah, I do have.
Okay. So if you look down on there, there's a section that lists some positions, on actual job boards that tend to be associated with that certification. It's not a guarantee that you would meet the qualifications, but it does try to break it down by the cert that you hold to kind of help you navigate to the jobs that might be suitable for that. So it wouldn't hurt to look there.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Did you have another question?
What other skills that you actually need to just get into the cloud? Either like, I think one of the entry-level jobs they have at AWS is like a solution architect associate. Actually, they have this program, and the support engineer, like the cloud support, which doesn't really require a lot of technical background. Like if you really understand the fundamentals, I think you should be like good to go with the certification.
Right. Cloud support and customer service, tend to be less stringent on the requirements. That's definitely true.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and good luck with your journey.
Yeah.
Feel free to hit me on LinkedIn, and if I can help in any way, and this is an open invitation to anyone. There's not too many people with the last name Zoot on LinkedIn. It's either me or perhaps my dad.
Definitely will do.
If it's a retired metallurgist, that's my dad. If it's someone actively working at AWS, that's me. But feel free to hit me on LinkedIn, and if I can help you in your career, I'm more than willing to do that.
Thank you. Really
Sure.
appreciate that.
Any other questions about my presentation?
I do not see any other questions. So
okay.
Unless anybody wants a last minute question, I really wanted to thank you, Andre, This was fantastically valuable.
My pleasure. And
and
don't leave yet.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can have a group discussion on third-party training that you use. And again, this is a discussion that I would rather not participate in because I don't want to show, bias of one company or another. But maybe you could lead that if you have ideas on training that you found useful for third-party.
Yeah, I can definitely share my experience with that. So for the associate level and cloud practitioner, I would definitely recommend a Cloud Guru. That's number one. And also there is a ton of practice questions on Udemy. WizLab is a really good source. Definitely read the FAQ on AWS. Do the white papers for sure. Read those. You don't have to really go through everything, but at least if you're really familiar. Also, there is a really cool thing on AWS. They have this called Get Started, where they have actually small little projects that you can do if you want to really specifically on storage. That there's 10 projects. If you do this, you actually really, really, really help you a lot on getting your hands on AWS. So this is really cool. So actually, those are the sources that I would recommend for someone to take the certification. I'm not sure about the professional level. I haven't really taken anyone. So I don't know actually the sources. Because a lot of people complain about a Cloud Guru for the professional level. They say the associate level, they're actually great. They're fine. Some of the specialties, they're okay. But there is one gentleman in Udemy. His name is Stefan. A lot of people recommend him on the professional level.
Good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I've done a lot with, let's see, Coursera. It's been a little while, but a Cloud Guru, Udemy was pretty good. I kind of used a wide variety, and I think the most really what I did was use my experience and played around with things. That really helped me. For me personally, everybody has a different learning style. For me personally, it's very much hands-on keyboard, and that's how I learned how to do a lot of things. So that's really been key for me. We did have another question. How often are the special events held for those with certifications, and how do certification holders find out about the events? I'll answer from my experience. At reInvent, there are events, parties, or gatherings for people that have recently gotten their certifications or got their certifications while at reInvent. That's something I always wanted to do, is get a certification at reInvent, but I always found sessions I wanted to be at more. So I ended up at the sessions.
And, speaking historically for last reInvent and, a couple at least before that, again, there's a thing called the Certification Lounge. And, it's really cool to get a certification at reInvent, but anyone who has an active certification is welcome to the lounge. And, the lounge, it's got some snacks, it's got some things like that, which, there's a lot of opportunities to get that in reInvent, but it does give you some unique swag. You get some stuff that is specifically just for people with certifications. So I have seen that at reInvent. I think some of the summits have also had the lounge. I don't know what it's going to be going forward, but we're certainly going to try to do something to reward the people that have our certifications.
There were a couple other things on the mobile phones. There have been some apps I've used over the years. I won't call any out by name because I actually don't know if they've been updated. But if you search for things like AWS Cert or AWS Practice, you will usually find some apps that will throw questions at you and give you a score at the end. And just the repetitive of doing those again and again helps me at least get that information sunk in my head. So that's one of the techniques I use as well. And another question about any discount coupons available for AWS exams. Not that I'm aware of.
That's actually a good point. Something I should have brought up, and I apologize for not. So there's not, if you pass an AWS exam, you get a coupon for 50% off your next AWS exam. So, and a good way to kind of use that as a waterfall. So for instance, say I pay full price for the foundational level, I get a 50% off coupon, which I now apply to the more expensive associate. Hopefully I pass that. And now I have a 50% off that I apply to the more expensive professional. So overall, you've really reduced the cost of your exams. So, there is that reward as a discount for people that pass the exam.
Great information. Does anybody else have any experience they want to share about training, education, any of those things?
I'll throw in one thing. So I took the SA associate exam a couple years ago, and I went it alone and just went from the exam certification book, and I ended up way overstudying for it. I memorized limits and all kinds of stuff, and this time around with the professional level, I went through a Cloud Guru. And right off the bat, one of the things they said up front is don't memorize a bunch of limits. And I was like, that's what I was missing on that associate one, because I just spent way too much time studying for it, not having that little bit of guidance in there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I wanted to make a similar comment that, like sometimes we all overstudy. My experience taking a few of these exams has been that they are all scenario based. So they never ask like how many regions or how many data centers or whatever they have, because they're always changing. It's more around how you solution it, what are the services, and more fundamental in nature. So you don't have to memorize a lot of things. You just have to understand. And my experience, I did my first certification in 2017, which was a while ago. And that time only it was available on Udemy, like a Cloud Guru guy used to have a course for $15. Now I think they have a whole website, but just play with the platform. That's gonna give you a lot of confidence, and just create an account, play with the platform, and just go through the course, whatever you pick, Coursera or Cloud Guru, just whatever they are teaching, play with it, and that will give you a much more better understanding, just conceptually, as well as some hands-on training as well.
Yeah, somebody did mention that the A Cloud Guru Associate course on Udemy, or I'm sorry, a Cloud Guru Associate course on Udemy, they're only $14 when they have a sale, and that's for a developer and architect. Any other questions or comments?
I had recently just taken the newer version of the Cloud Solutions Architect, the new exam. And I found that, like as everyone else said, Cloud Guru definitely helped out with my journey taking that test. Cloud Guru is really good for like an overview sense. So of course you should also do your own side research and not just, solely just follow that all the way. You gotta pick up some things on your own as well. What else helped me was like some practice tests on Udemy, like a tutorial dojo. They're really good. They even have like their site is also for free as well. So like they list all because some of the services that Amazon gets services that they share or give out, they're really similar to each other in some ways. And I found out like Tutorial Dojo kind of like lists those that are kind of similar, and they kind of like help explain to you like the differences if you have like trouble like that. And also like I think someone said like Steve Mark, that's his name I believe. He's really good as well.
His name is
Stefan. Yeah, Stefan. He's really good. He actually I failed my first time, but at the go of his course, his study practice guide, it definitely had pushed me to the passing grade.
I would definitely also recommend on questions online on Udemy, Neil Davis. It's pretty good too. So for the associate level, the three of them, Neil is pretty good, done a really good job actually helping on passing the exam in terms of like practice questions.
That's awesome.
Yeah, excellent. As Andre mentioned, a lot of services do have free trials, so do make sure you understand which ones, but definitely go sign up for an account, and if you have questions about something, go try it out. It will give you the confidence, and that's really, I guess, one of the bigger things about taking tests. It's a lot about confidence. If you have the confidence to know that you know how to configure a DynamoDB, and the one that freaked me out, honestly, for one of my tests was the right, what is it called? The read and the write units and how it's billed on the original DynamoDB. That was the most detailed question they asked. And fortunately, I had gone through a practice exam, so I had it nailed, got it confident, and moved on. So yeah, they don't tend to ask a lot of questions about things that aren't around building a solution. So it is very focused on, you know, how do you use the services, what's the right service to use, what's the right pattern, things like that. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, Andre, again, really wanted to thank you so much. Great time. Thank you, everybody else, for joining. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the upcoming months for our future meetups.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. This was great. Thanks, guys.